All right, guys. So everybody's asking what the heck this was, and other guys were asking what the heck is that doing in the state of Louisiana. So this is a Z1. Just want to go through a few things to show you all the very unique and cool stuff about this vehicle. It was a very limited production made in the, I believe it was late 80s, early 90s. Just kind of a cool car that BMW wanted to kind of push the envelope on a few things just to see what was possible. I'm just going to show you all some of the cooler stuff about it. The biggest thing that sticks out are these doors. If you notice, there's no doors. The way you close and open the door is by pressing that button. Pretty cool. Now, the downsides to it is it's like getting inside of a car that has a roll cage, and a very thick roll cage. So it's kind of, you hang on to the top of the windshield here. Like this is purposely a grab bar to grab onto and help get yourself in. Virtually impossible to get in it with the top up. So kind of cool, but I can definitely see why it didn't catch on, just because, you know, yeah. If you're of the heavier nature, you're not going to just climb in this thing. Another cool tidbit about this. Every panel on this car is plastic. BMW claimed that you could change this car's color in 2 hours by replacing every piece of plastic on the car. Now, somebody actually did it. There's a video somewhere out there, but it took them like 6 hours or 8 hours or something like that. So it is possible to change the color of the car without ever having to paint it, but kind of a pain in the butt. This car never came in white. Someone obviously had this car painted. I believe this one was red initially. And I want to say the colors were red, black, and green maybe that they came in. But that's like, you know, anyway. So, yeah, so those are some of the interesting things about this car. Now, that gap right there, it looks like they forgot something, but they actually, so it's actually a working airfoil. Let me go grab my flashlight real quick. So they actually used the muffler to grab air from under the car. I don't know if you can see it real good. So it grabs air and then it channels it up through here. And it's literally a rear diffuser to give more downforce in the rear. Pretty cool little thing there, kind of ahead of its time, I guess you could say. But yeah, so a very unique muffler, a very unique rear bumper design, all to basically have a rear spoiler without having to have a rear spoiler. So now the trunk is ridiculously small, like virtually useless as far as trunk goes. Yeah. So I guess they just had to have one. I don't know, probably could have done without it. Okay, a lot of this car is, it's really a split between E30 and E36. People who are not familiar with the chassis designations, E30 would be like your Beverly Hills 90210 3 Series, the ones that had like the 4 headlights in the front kind of deal. E36 is like that one, Colin's car. That's so like the rear suspension on this thing is very E36, E46 style. The front suspension, like very E30, like to the point where it uses some E30 components, like the strut tubes are all E30. Instrument cluster, unique to this car. Looks very motorcycle-ish in design. So that's kind of cool, that's neat. The Z1 never came with air condition. So if you have a Z1 and you see that it does have air condition, it is because it was installed after the fact. Let's see, pop the hood. Very E30 in the hood operation. Now, A lot of people are going to see this and be like, why did they put that motor in there? And don't get me wrong, it's the M20. It's tough as nails. It's bulletproof unless you lose a timing belt. But it's not exactly your top of the line performer. Really just kind of okay in the performance department compared to modern power plants. So that's one of the things that we're going to fix on this. I'll show you that in a second. But yeah, if you're an old 3 Series guy, you're like, oh my God, that's E30. But then you look over there and you're like, oh wow, that's E34. So yeah, kind of a mix of a bunch of, like almost BMW went in their parts bin. They did all their R&D on the body, and then whenever it came to everything else, they're like, well, what do we have left over from the other chassis? I'll just put that in there, kind of deal. So kind of neat, kind of, you know, makes it a little easier to work on and be able to find parts and stuff like that. So let's see. Headlights are very unique. The little grills are really small. Kind of opposite of what they're doing nowadays. Closes just like your typical E30, just push on the rondelle kind of deal. Yeah, look, I'm going to pick the car up and show you underneath. I will spare you the lift. All right, guys, so getting back to the E30 aspect of things, 4-lug, not 5-lug. The brakes, very E30 on the brakes. The rear, same thing, 4-lug, and brakes, very E30-ish on the brakes. So when you get under the car, unique oil pan, because it's a rear sump, but it is still the M20. Transmission is a E30 style transmission. Kind of a unique torque tube setup kind of deal, but I believe it still has your traditional like drive shaft with a Gibo disc in there. The muffler, again, unique to this chassis because it uses the air to diffuse across the top of it to hit that diffuser back there. Rear differential, very E30 in nature. The axles, you know, yeah. Now, when you start looking at the rear suspension, not E30. Very much like E36. You have the lower trailing arm right here, you have the upper trailing arm, but then the not trailing arm, control arm, but the trailing arm unique. Very E36 in setup, but it's aluminum and has like a, I don't know, just kind of a neat design in that control arm itself, the trailing arm. So there it is, guys. That's the underside of a Z1. And this ought to be a fun project. Oh, and I told you that I would show you things to come.